In the vast tapestry of Chinese myth, among the cloud-wreathed heavens where symbols breathe and archetypes awaken, there drifts a creature known as Feilong, the flying dragon. Its name is written with two simple characters, Fei meaning to fly and Long meaning dragon. Yet within those strokes lies the weight of millennia, of dreams, transformations, and the eternal dialogue between heaven and earth. The Feilong is not merely a beast of legend, it is an emblem of ascension. It is the dragon released from the rivers, rising into the clouds, the union of the terrestrial and the celestial. In later traditions, the name would travel beyond China's borders, becoming Hiryu in Japan, Biryong in Korea, and Feilong in Vietnam, always retaining its essence, the dragon in flight, the spirit in motion. Ancient texts were the first to speak its name. The Shuowen Jiezi, compiled in 121 CE, described the Feilong as the living image of the dragon in flight, a manifestation of power made visible, a symbol of movement between worlds. Yet the origins of this being stretch further back into the Age of Oracles and the mystic wisdom of the Yijing, or Book of Changes. In the Yijing, the Feilong was not a monster, but a metaphor, a vision of the Daren, the great person. One passage reads, "Flying dragons in the heavens, it furthers one to see the great man." The text speaks of the moment when potential breaks its confines and rises to the realm of action, when the wise align with the natural order and, like the Feilong, take flight upon it. Later commentators would see in these lines the perfect image of spiritual sovereignty, a being who, through clarity and harmony, becomes one with the motion of heaven itself. Centuries later, the philosopher Han Feizi used the same image to describe the nature of power. He wrote of the flying dragon that rides upon clouds and the serpent that moves through mist, each magnificent while its element endures. But when the clouds disperse and the mists are gone, even the dragon and serpent fall to earth, as helpless as worms. Power, he taught, is not inherent. It depends upon the currents that sustain it. The Feilong thus became a lesson in circumstance, the art of rising with the times. In the encyclopedic Lushi Chungqiu, the flying dragon appears again, this time as a master of music, serving the legendary Emperor Zhuanshu. When the 8 winds of heaven circled the world, the sovereign ordered Feilong to compose melodies that imitated their sounds, a celestial harmony offered to the Supreme Lord. Here, the dragon was no longer a force of might, but of art and attunement, the spirit of sound itself, rising on the breath of the wind. The Taoist text Zhuangzi transformed the image once more. In its pages, a Shenren, a divine being, is said to ride the Feilong, ascending through clouds and mist, wandering freely beyond the 4 seas. This dragon of air became the vehicle of transcendence, carrying the immortal beyond the dust of the human world. In this vision, Feilong was not simply a creature, but a state of being, the soul's release into the infinite. The Chuchi, the ancient songs of the South, wrap the Feilong in poetry. In Li Sao, the poet rides winged dragons across the sky, his chariot built of jade and ivory. In another verse, the goddess of the Xiang travels northward upon her flying dragon, her sails made of fig leaves, her banners woven from orchids. In these lines, the Feilong is not a symbol of power, but of yearning, a companion for those who journey beyond the human heart in search of truth or love, unbroken by time. The Huainanzi deepened the myth even further. There, the flying dragon is born from winged excellence, giving birth in turn to the phoenix and the luan, the divine bird of transformation. The Feilong thus stands midway between all things that ascend, a bridge between feathered grace and scaled majesty, a symbol of metamorphosis within the living cosmos. Centuries later, in the Baopuzi of Geihong, the flying dragon returns as the Mount of Immortals. The text describes the transcendent sage, whose eyes grow square and whose ears rise to the crown of his head, ascending heavenward upon a Feilong wrapped in auspicious cloud. "If you see me," he writes, "you will think me a god of heaven or earth, but not something born from study." The Feilong here embodies the ultimate liberation, wisdom carried upward beyond the lightning and the rain. In later centuries, poets and scholars continued to give the Feilong new forms. Some described it as a hybrid, the head of a dragon, the tail of a phoenix, adorned in colors that shimmered like the dawn. Others equated it with the wind god Feilion, suggesting that every gust and shifting current of the air was, in truth, the beating of its invisible wings. Across every retelling, one idea remains. The Feilong is motion itself, the living metaphor for ascent, transformation, and the merging of opposites. It rises where the visible meets the unseen. It is the dream of transcendence shaped in the form of a dragon. When the ancients spoke of flying dragons in the heavens, they were not describing a creature of scale and bone. They were speaking of the moment when spirit awakens, when the bound and the earthly discover that they too can rise upon the breath of heaven.